The wind was blowing hard across the mountains. The rocks echoed with a sound that seemed like a groan, the kind of sound only the desert knows. The sky, painted grey, seemed to watch closely as a weary man walked aimlessly, his heart crushed by the weight of doubt. His name was Elijah, the prophet of fire, the one who defied kings, humiliated false gods, and saw the power of God descend from heaven in flames. But now, he was running. Yes, running from fear, from threat, and maybe from himself. How many times does life do the same to us? One day, we feel the presence of God like fire in our bones. Everything is clear, everything is alive. And the next day, the fire seems to go out, leaving only the echo of silence. Elijah knew what that was like. After the victory on Mount Carmel, after the miracle that made the people shout, "The Lord is God," he expected a new beginning. He hoped Israel would return to the Lord's ways. But Jezebel, the queen who hated the prophets, vowed to kill him before the sun set again. And the man who once faced crowds was now running from a woman. Have you noticed how fear can distort everything? How it makes a warrior seem small, a faith seem weak, and a promise seem far away. Elijah, the man who made the heavens close and the rain stop, now asked God to let him die. "It's enough, Lord. I've had enough. Take my life." But God didn't answer with thunder. He didn't send fire or angels with swords. God answered with bread and silence. An angel came near, touched Elijah, and said, "Get up and eat." And beside him was bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. There are moments when God explains nothing. He simply feeds you, not with answers, but with presence, not with new promises, but with strength for the next step. Elijah ate, lay down, and slept again. But the angel returned and insisted, "Get up and eat, for the journey will be too much for you." So Elijah got up, ate, and walked 40 days and 40 nights until he reached the mountain of God, Horeb. There, he took shelter in a cave, a place where the body rests, but the heart still wrestles. And God asked, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" God's questions are never out of curiosity. They are meant to reveal what's hidden inside us. Elijah replied, "I've been very zealous for the Lord. But the Israelites have broken your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too." Then God said, "Go out and stand before me on the mountain." Elijah obeyed. And a mighty wind came, tearing through the mountains. But the Lord was not in the wind. Then came an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. Then came fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And then came the gentle whisper of a soft breeze. And Elijah covered his face with his cloak, because in that moment he understood God was there. Not in the noise, not in the force, but in the silence. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not when fire falls from heaven, but when God speaks softly within us. Because the whisper can only be heard by those who draw near. And maybe that's why God speaks that way, so we'll come closer. Elijah, the prophet who faced kings, now learned that God's power also dwells in tenderness, and that some victories aren't won by shouting, but by listening. Maybe you, like Elijah, are in a cave season, a time when it feels like God has gone silent. But listen, He's still speaking. Only now, He speaks differently. He speaks in the bread that sustains you, in the strength you can't explain, in the comfort that arrives when no one else understands. God's silence is not absence, it's an invitation to hear what can only be heard up close. So take a deep breath and listen, because sometimes the miracle you're waiting for doesn't come from the fire, it comes from the breeze. If this message has already touched your heart, subscribe now to the Carpenter and share this video. Together, let's keep hearing more of God's voice, even in the silence. The wind had stopped, the dust began to settle, And in the middle of that sacred silence, Elijah kept his eyes closed, breathing in the mountain air. There was no more fire, no earthquake, no fierce wind, only the breeze. But within that breeze, there was something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. It was as if every particle of air whispered, "I am still with you." For a long time, Elijah had confused presence with power. He thought God only revealed himself through great signs, spectacular gestures, visible victories. But now, God was showing him a greater glory, the glory of simply remaining. Even when there's no audience, no applause, no fire, God is still there. Elijah sat down on a rock, exhausted. He looked toward the horizon and saw the desert he had crossed. Every step seemed to have been guided by pain. But now he realized it was pain that led him to the encounter. It was emptiness that brought him to the mountain where God whispers. How many times do we only find God when all the noise inside us finally goes silent? When the voices of anxiety, fear, and doubt fade away, and all that remains is the sound of the heart, weak but still beating. At that moment, Elijah didn't need theological answers. He needed a new beginning. And God, the same one who had called him out of obscurity, was now calling him back to life. "Go back the way you came through the desert," said the Lord. "There are kings to anoint, prophets to raise, and stories yet to be written." What a powerful phrase. Go back the way you came. Because the road that once wounded you can be the same one that heals you. The path that was once your escape can now become your mission. Elijah had fled through that same desert, trying to escape pain. But God was sending him back, not to suffer again, but to triumph where he once fell. There is something divine about returning. To return is not to retreat. It is to restore. It is to go back to the point where faith was lost and recover it. It is to say to fear, "Here you knocked me down, but here I will rise again." As Elijah descended the mountain, his heart no longer felt as heavy as before. That gentle voice still echoed within him, and each step seemed filled with new meaning. God had not rebuked him. He hadn't called him weak or cowardly. He had simply fed him, listened to him, and redirected him. Because the love of God never comes with accusation. It comes with direction. Maybe you're living something similar right now. A time when everything feels heavy, when fear shouts louder than faith. But just as he did with Elijah, God hasn't come to humiliate you. He's come to renew you. He knows the human heart gets tired. He knows even the strongest grow weary. But he also knows what S inside you, and that S why he won to let you stop. There's a precious detail in this story. Elijah was sustained by bread and water, two simple things, but they were enough to keep him standing for 40 days. What does that teach us? That sometimes what sustains us isn't the extraordinary, but the simple. A sincere prayer, a word that touches the heart, a hug at the right moment, a verse that shines in the dark night. God's extraordinary often comes disguised as simplicity, and when the heart opens, even silence becomes a voice. Elijah now walked not to flee, but to obey. And along the way, something began to change inside him. The prophet who once prayed for death now began to breathe purpose again. As he walked, he remembered the moments when God had used him with power. The fire on Mount Carmel, the restored altar, the people bowing in worship. But he also remembered the weight of being a prophet, the loneliness, the nights when no one understood him. And maybe he realized something only those who suffer discover. God doesn't call us only to be strong before others, but to be honest before him. The desert that seemed like punishment was, in fact, the workshop of restoration. It was there, with no crowd, no stage, no human glory, that Elijah learned the greatest of all secrets. God's strength is made perfect in weakness. When he reached Damascus, he began to fulfill what God had commanded. He anointed Hazael as king over Aram. He anointed Jehu as king over Israel. And finally, he found Elisha, a young man plowing the field with 12 yoke of oxen. And in that simple encounter, a weary prophet and a hard-working young man, God began a new generation of faith. Elijah threw his mantle over Elisha, and in that gesture, he passed on more than a calling, he passed on hope. Because when God restores someone, he never restores them just for themselves. He restores them so that others may awaken through them. Elijah didn't know it, but the young man now following him would one day witness his ascension, perform even greater miracles, and continue the story. God always has an Elisha waiting for the touch of a restored Elijah. How many times does God do the same with us? He lifts us from the dust, not only to heal our wounds, but so that through them others might find healing too. Your testimony is more powerful than you think. The tears you shed were not in vain. They watered the seeds others will harvest. Elijah learned that what he thought was the end was actually the new beginning God had planned. Because when God ends something, it's always to start something greater. The desert that was once the scene of his escape had now become the road of purpose, and every grain of sand seemed to whisper the same reminder, you are not alone. What Jezebel tried to destroy, God restored with tenderness. What fear tried to silence, God turned into testimony, and the prophet who once asked for death was now walking hand in hand with life. There's a deep beauty in that contrast. The same man who begged to die was the one who never experienced death. Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind of fire. That's no coincidence. It's a symbol, a divine message saying, what seems like your end today can become the place of your greatest glory. The one who wanted to give up was lifted up without even tasting death. God didn't just restore Elijah, he exalted him. And maybe that's the message the Spirit wants to whisper to you today. God isn't finished yet. Your exhaustion is not the end. It's the pause before the turning point. He still has paths to show you, people for you to touch, promises to fulfill. But to hear the next step, you must do what Elijah did. Step out of the cave. As long as you stay trapped in fear, guilt, or disappointment, the noise of the world will drown out God's whisper. But when you rise, even with trembling knees, heaven begins to speak again. And the same God who said to Elijah, "Get up and eat," now says to you, "Get up and walk." There is still purpose for you. It doesn't matter if you failed. It doesn't matter if you ran away. It doesn't matter if your faith went dim for a while. God still knows your name, and he still has bread and water prepared just for you. Maybe you say, "But I have no strength." And God replies, "I know, that's why the strength will come from me." You don't need to understand everything or feel everything. You just need to take the next step, because along the way, God himself will reveal who he is. And when he reveals himself, your heart beats again. The burden becomes light. His voice, gentle as the breeze, becomes stronger than any storm. Elijah discovered that true power was not in calling fire down from heaven, but in letting God rekindle the fire within him. And maybe that's what God wants to do with you right now. Reignite the fire that fear tried to extinguish. The same Spirit that sustained Elijah in the desert is the one sustaining you today. He whispers in the midst of your weariness. There is still life in you. There is still purpose in your story. Do not despise your time in the cave. It's there that God works in silence to shape the new you. It's there that the heart learns to hear the whisper and the feet learn to walk by faith. And when the time comes, God will bring you out of the shadows and back onto the road, not to relive the past, but to write the future. Because the God of Elijah is still the same God today. The God who speaks in silence, who feeds the weary, who turns deserts into paths and weakness into strength. And he calls you by name to live again. So take a deep breath, lift your head, and start walking again. The wind may have stopped, the fire may have faded, but God is still breathing over you. And that breath is the beginning of something new. Time had passed, and the prophet of fire now walked as a man shaped by the breeze. Elijah no longer needed to prove anything, not to the people, not even to himself. Because whoever has learned to hear the voice of God in silence no longer needs the applause of the world. He understood that the greatest victory is not calling fire down from heaven, but continuing to walk when the heart wants to stop. True faith is not measured by the miracles we see, but by the trust that remains even when there's no sound, no sign, no immediate answer. Elijah looked back and saw how patient God had been. While he murmured, God sustained him. While he ran, God followed him. While he doubted, God waited for him. And now the same God was leading him to his final act on earth. They came to the Jordan. The waters flowed calmly, reflecting the sky in golden hues. Elijah took off his mantle, the same one God had once given him as a symbol of authority, and rolled it up. He struck the waters with it, and the river parted. Elisha watched in awe. That wasn't just a miracle, it was a reminder. The same God who opens the way for the masters will also open it for the disciples. The two crossed in silence. Then Elijah stopped, turned to the young man and asked, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" With tears in his eyes, Elisha replied, "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." Elijah smiled. Not because the request was simple, but because he knew the legacy would continue. "You have asked a difficult thing, but if you see me when I'm taken from you, it shall be so." Then the wind began to blow. This time, it wasn't the wind of despair. It was the wind of glory. The heavens opened, chariots and horses of fire appeared, and a whirlwind surrounded Elijah. Elisha cried out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel." And when he looked again, Elijah was gone. God had taken him, not through death, but into eternal life. The same man who once wished to die was lifted up without ever tasting death, because the God who saw him in the desert, who heard him in the cave, also saw him in that moment, ready for heaven. Elisha was left alone. Elijah's mantle had fallen to the ground, and when he picked it up, something within him changed. The same power that once manifested on Mount Carmel now flowed through his hands. Elisha returned to the Jordan, struck the waters with the mantle, and cried out, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" And once again the waters parted. God's answer was clear, "I am still here." The silence of God is never absence. It is presence in another form. It is a sound that only the intimate learn to hear. Elijah didn't vanish into the wind. He was wrapped in presence. That whirlwind was more than power. It was an embrace. The same God who sustained him in the cave was now carrying him home. Elijah's journey teaches us that life with God is made of highs and lows, of fire and silence, of victories and escapes. But through every season, God remains God. And maybe, right now, you are in your own cave season. Maybe the fire has faded, and the noise of the world has made you doubt whether God still speaks. But listen with your heart. He is still speaking, not through thunder, not through earthquakes, but through the whisper of his presence. He speaks in the early morning when no one else can hear. He speaks in the hug that comforts. He speaks in the bread that sustains your tired body. He speaks through the tear that falls and the peace that comes without explanation. The silence of God is not punishment, it's invitation. An invitation to draw near, to rest, to trust. Because only those who come close enough to hear the whisper discover that God never stopped speaking. And just like Elijah, you too will rise again. Maybe not in chariots of fire, but in grace, in renewal, in restored faith. The God who speaks in silence is the same who turns despair into mission, fear into courage, and flight into purpose. He hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't given up on you. He is right there, even now, waiting for you to step out of the cave and hear once more the gentle sound of his voice. So close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and let the wind of the Spirit blow over your soul. Do not fear the silence. It is there that the heart of God whispers what the world will never understand. Maybe your story has chapters that seem to make no sense, but its ending, that belongs to God, and He always writes the final paragraph with hope. The same God who lifted Elijah in the desert wants to lift you today. It doesn't matter if fear made you stop, if exhaustion silenced you, or if the noise of the world confused you. God is still whispering your name, and that whisper is the sound of eternity calling you. If this message has spoken to your heart, share this video now. You might be the instrument God uses to restore someone who's about to give up. And don't forget, subscribe to the Carpenter, activate the notification bell, and keep walking with us on this journey of faith, hope, and revelation. Because here is where we learn to hear the sound of God's silence.